Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I've got one that I think will be some fun today. What I have here is a alcohol content tester for gasoline. What's funny about that to me is this is actually called a gasohol tester, and I have not heard anyone under the age of, let's say, presently 70 use the term gasohol in decades. My dad used to refuse to go to gas stations that carried BP fuels or whatever they were called before BP owned them because they sold gasohol, which means they put ethanol in their fuel. And we all know the sordid risks and everything with ethanol fuels, but that just amused me because I haven't heard that term in forever. The other thing that amused me about this, or not amused me, that it surprised me about it, is that this is a made in US product, which, all right, cool. But all this thing really is a graduated cylinder that you fill with a certain amount of water and then a certain amount of gas, and you shake it up, and then you can see the alcohol settle out from the gasoline. The reason that works the way it does is because alcohol, I believe, is hygroscopic, which means it is attracted to water, and then everybody knows oil is lighter than water, so the gasoline will sit on top of the alcohol, and the alcohol will sit on top of the water. So really, this is just a beaker with handy little lines on it that make it easy to test gas. That's it. That's all this really is. You could do this in any other container you wanted to that was I'm doing it again. That is alcohol safe and gasoline safe. But this is just a little handy way to do it, and this thing was like $4. It's hard to beat. And the reason I'm interested in doing this at all is you guys will have recently seen me do a video on how to pump old gas out of old EFI Fords. Since I pumped 2-year-old gas out of it, and in that particular case, it's a 1991 Ford. It was never designed for alcohol fuel. I decided to run down to my local marathon station and see how much ethanol was in each grade of fuel. And I expected there to be like stickers in the pump saying, 10% ethanol content in all our fuel or anything like that. And I didn't see anything at all. I don't know if that's federally mandated law or not, or if it's just a courtesy or what, but I expected it and didn't find it. So I went ahead and bought some 93 octane because I had heard an internet rumor from forever ago that premium fuel doesn't always have ethanol. And well, okay, let's get some premium fuel, let's get a little test kit, and we'll test it and find out. What's also amusing is in the process of going through all this, I discovered there's I think a Country Mart gas station within like 5 miles of me that does sell ethanol-free fuel that I could have just gone to instead, but I didn't know that. So anyway, let's get this tester out and we'll give it a shot. So I hope you guys can see what I was talking about on this thing. There's a line on it that we are supposed to fill it up to with water, and then there is another line where we're supposed to fill it with gas, but I don't actually see the second line. Maybe literally all the way to the top with gasoline, because the arrow just goes off into space. Yeah, I don't see another line, so I guess we'll do that. We'll just fill it all the way to the top. But when you get it full, you put the lid back on it, you shake it up, the alcohol will settle out to the bottom, and there are demarcations here. So there's 10% alcohol, 20%, 70, and 85. So if you run an E85 in your turbo car or something, you might want to test your fuel that you're buying from station to station to see what the ethanol content is. You can use this little tester to do that too. That's really all this thing is, just a little vial with lines on it that you fill up to water and fill up with gas, and you shake it up and you see what happens. The first thing we need to do is get some water. I guess I'm going to fill it right to the top of that line. I'm going to do my best to try and nail it. And to do that, I'm just going to use a little disposable dropper here, or sometimes these are referred to as pipettes, but I usually think of those not having a bulb on the end of them. Regular old tap water, which at my house is well water, so if I've been getting free booze out of the ground at my house, this might show me that too. And just gonna stick her on in there, soak some up, try and get this in a position where you guys can see what's going on. Let's see if Saddington will be a good backdrop for us so you can see. Yeah, I think so. And I'm just gonna see if I can get water right on up to the line. I don't know how truly critical, it's probably pretty important to get it close. You're watching me try something like this for the first time, so. And of course there are no directions in the kit, but it is pretty straightforward. Let's take it easy here. I think maybe that was a touch too much. Maybe just a little. We'll take our pipette and just try and pull a little out. I'm going to get a better look at this. So actually I'm just shy of like the midpoint of the meniscus. If you don't want to know what I mean, if you put water in a vessel, it always makes like a bubble at the top. It's one of the crazy excuses flat earthers use to justify how the ocean looks around when the earth isn't. But anyway, so there's a bubble at the top of water. I'm going to try and hit the line right halfway between the bubble. And on camera, that's about the best I can do to show you, but I think I got pretty close. Looks good. So let's throw some gas in it. So now I'm going to take that same pipette and fill it up with gas. And I actually just noticed on this, it says fill up to neck. So I'm going to fill it up to just where the curvature of the neck begins. And I'll try and kind of do the same thing. I'm sure gasoline creates a meniscus too, although I've never looked to see, and see if I can kind of peg it. Of course, the problem I'm going to have with gas is I'm not going to be able to dip and re-dip like I could with water, because I don't want to get water in my gas. So I'm just going to have to get what we got the first time and see how it goes. In fact, I'm going to dry my pipette off here with something. So I think that's as good of a shot as I'm going to be able to get you guys. I've got my little dropper as empty as I can get it, and I've got my brand new 2-day-old premium fuel. Let's throw it in. Again, I'm going to try and be careful not to overfill. And the one thing I do like about this kit, as opposed to like a graduated cylinder or anything else, I saw other kits about like this when I bought this one, is it's really small, so you don't really have to waste much gas when you're doing this. And I mean, theoretically, we could suck the actual gasoline right back off the top of this and burn it and then dump the alcohol and water in the trash, but I don't think I'm going to take that chance. I think we're just going to dump it all. Throw it in our oil drain pan. So we're getting close. One more squeezy. Okay, so that's just up to the brim. I think you guys can see pretty nicely that's just up to the crown of the container. So let's put our cap on, give it a shake, and we'll let it sit for a few minutes and see what we end up reading. Shake our groove thing. And we'll let it sit there. Might be a hot minute because it looks like it kind of bubbled up. Obviously not knowing what this is supposed to look like is hurting my chances of actually understanding it, but it kind of looks like the alcohol is forming bubbles. Let's give that a short while, like I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll come back and take a look at it. So it has been 10 or 15 minutes, and I've done everything in my power I could to not disturb this thing, and I really don't know what it's showing me. It doesn't really look like there's 3 lines of demarcation on this. It looks like there's only 2. It looks like it's just gas and water. Let me see if I can get the camera down there for you guys so you can see it maybe a little bit better, because I can only kind of see it so well too, but I don't really see 3 lines of demarcation. I just see 1. You guys see what I mean? I don't see 3 divisions. I just see water up to just under the 10% line, I guess. Maybe I should spin this thing around. So, I mean, I definitely didn't have it that full of water before though. But yeah, what I've seen from other people's tests are that you shake it up and then you can actually see 3 lines down through the thing. You can see the water, the alcohol, and the gas. And I don't see that at all. I see 1 line. I see gas and water. Or maybe it's just where the 1-line division is supposed to happen, is showing you your content, because that would be around 10%, like 5-10%. I'm not sure. I may have to research this a little bit more, but this is not how I was expecting this to look. And right at this second, I'm willing to say this gas doesn't have any ethanol in it, which would be really cool. But let me dig in a little deeper and see if I'm screwing up this idea. So I think I was wrong about at least one thing. I don't think you're supposed to see 3 divisions. I think alcohol and water do mix fairly homogeneously. But one thing that I'm seeing, and I might just be too dumb for science, is that is the line of demarcation there. And you can see I've got the center line of the camera lens and the center line of the actual water line. You can see how that water line, when you look at the back of it, that all looks like 1 line to you now. I've tried to eliminate as much parallax as possible. So the center line of that line and the center line of the camera lens are pretty much horizontally in plane. And that looks just damn near like where I filled it with water. I mean, it's really close. And when I look at it, I'm gonna say that is so close that I can't really tell. And I did look at some other videos and other pictures, and this is again one of those topics where my videos might be crappy, but the ones that I could find on this topic might be considered worse. So my 5% possibly better video here is probably the best you guys are gonna do, or at least the best I could do. That is so close that I can't call it, so I'm gonna run this test again and see if we get the same result. And after that, I am gonna go ahead and mix up some rubbing alcohol and gasoline at like 50-50. That should send that line way up the tube, and just examine our result and see how it looks, because I really don't know how these are supposed to look. So let's try it again, we'll see what we get. So I've rinsed out my pipette and the vessel and everything else as much as I can. And I think the best way to keep myself honest here is if I fill it like 100% through the camera, and then we can at least compare before and after still frames of video and see what we're actually gonna get. And I did just put a washer under the vial so it'll sit on the top of that socket a little more nicely, but it's about as close to parallax free as I can get. So in reality, that looks like it's just above the line, the water line. So I think the meniscus is pretty much a 50% split again. Now we need to dump our pipette and try and get as much water out of it as we can. Because, you know, maybe that's something that affected it too, that there's a little trace bits of water in it. I don't know what to do about getting it all out, but there isn't hardly much in it. So now we're gonna fill it with gas again. And I don't want to move the camera or anything to show you guys that, because that could affect our end result. You'll just have to take my word for it, where I'm filling it to the neck and I'm drilling gas absolutely everywhere. And I hope I don't dump this thing over. Shaking like I just smoked crack. I think probably because it's getting pretty cold out here in the shop. See if we can be a little smoother this time. I really don't want to shake this thing off of there. It's kind of hard to hit all this stuff. What I've done this time is I filled it with gas pretty much to the top of the arrow on the part that says gasoline filled a neck. I filled it so the bottom of the meniscus is right on that arrow, and we'll give it a shake and see what happens. In one of the videos I saw, it almost looked like when you shake it, when it makes those funky bubbles, that means it does have alcohol in it. It's hard to tell. That's why I want to see if the camera can keep us honest, because I don't know what to expect. So you guys see it's all funny, and that line of demarcation is way high up. One guy's video said, yeah, that means it's that much alcohol, and then I saw another video right after that that said, no, let it settle. So right now you can see on the camera that line of demarcation is like at 10%, which is exactly what I would expect. I would expect this to be E10 like everything else. But then when it settled out and there wasn't really a line at all, I didn't know what to think. So let's give that some time and we'll see what it looks like in a little bit. So the camera says that's been about 10 or 15 minutes. I think about 15. I think we'll have a cool time lapse out of that, and I think this time it is probably more clear to all of us that that line of demarcation is likely right on 10%. Since the camera caught it all, I can grab it now and steal. It now looks like it's right on that 10% line. See if you guys agree. You guys are getting parallax off that 10% line now though, because I had you set up for water. Let me see if I can prop you up just another little touch. I think that is about as close as I can get to getting you guys right on it. So yeah, I think we're at 10%. But just for fun, let's see if we can mix up our own alcohol and gas concoction. And I don't know if this is going to work at all, because I don't know if these will truly mix without like additives and stuff added to them. So I'm going to try and go for 200 milliliters of alcohol. And this is isopropyl alcohol, so just rubbing alcohol. I'm making a huge mess with it, a touch more. I don't want to use that pipette because it's got gas in it, and you know, I use this for first aid. We're close enough. We'll be able to see a 50% increase in alcohol content, no problem. So now we're going to take our pipette and our gas and let's try and get that on up to 400 or so. It'll probably take 1,000 years with this tiny little pipette. Maybe not. And what's interesting is it kind of doesn't look like it wants to mix, but what do I know what it's supposed to look like? I've never done this before. one more for good measure. That should be about half isopropyl alcohol. And I'm just going to stir it up. It'll be interesting to see if this stays homogeneous. Kind of doesn't look that way, but I'll be honest, somebody put this thing back in my kitchen counter dirty, so it's not the cleanest thing in the world anyway. It might just be chunks floating in it. But let's dump out our test vial and repeat our test with our 50% increased alcohol. So it's been a few minutes, and I don't want to leave this set too long because I think the alcohol will start flashing off. But that still appears to be a pretty homogeneous mix. So we're going to do the same thing we did last time. We're going to put our vial back up on our little socket and all that stuff, and we're going to use the camera to help us stay honest. I think that's good. So we'll fill it back up with water, keep my crack addiction down long enough to do it without dumping it over. So we're pretty much right on the top of that line with water, and I'm just eyeballing our gas alcohol mix I just made again one more time, and it looks homogeneous. What it looks like is like melted ice water from when you like finish a soda and the stuff just sits around for another hour. Or, you know, like whiskey melted rocks. Oh, that looks really interesting as we pour it in, though. Much more cloudy, I would say. And I'm going to try the same trick. I'm just going to fill it to the top of the gas arrow. And since I know this should be like 60% alcohol this time, I am going to center us up on that area of the tube. And we won't really have a line, but we'll have a frame of reference. We should notice this kind of a change. Put our cap on. We're going to give it a nice shaky shake again. And what's interesting is now it looks like lemonade. Let's see if we can alter our setup here. So there's like some frothing, almost looks like tapioca bubbles in the bottom of this thing. I'm going to shake it up some more. And I would expect like 60% or so to be like maybe right at the top of the word flammable. And I think we're pretty well squared up there. So now we're definitely squared up. So let's just let this sit here for quite a while and we'll see what happens with our line of demarcation. We should see something right in this range. And this is completely unscientific. They don't add isopropyl alcohol to gasoline, they add ethanol. So we're just doing this for fun. What is fun, and you guys can't see it unfortunately because I don't want to upset the rig, is I can see the bubbles coming up to the side of this thing, and yeah, you can too now. That line's right under the word flammable. Pretty cool. But let's let this sit for a good long time again. So that was anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, and it did exactly what I thought it was going to do. And it settled out right around that flammable line. So at least now we know how these testers are supposed to look. And when I say we, I mean the idiot running the video here. I have no idea how these are supposed to operate. And like I said, not to diminish the guys that made the other videos I happen to watch, and I didn't watch 100 videos. I looked at like 3. I'm sure they did the best they could do. This is the best I can do. In 10 years from now, some guy will probably make a video that's 5% better than mine and say that mine's crap too, and that's all okay. I'm not trying to diminish the efforts of anybody else, but I just couldn't get a clear image of what this is supposed to look like, and now I think we all have that. So now we know. And this spring, I'll back this up with a part 2 of this thing where I go get some non-ethanol gas, or it's supposed to be non-ethanol, and we'll run the test again, and then we'll be able to compare between the videos. And I think my test apparatus here is repeatable enough that I should be able to get pretty similar footage in the spring, so we can A and B it if we want. But anyway guys, that's it. That's how these things work. I think the end result here is that the Marathon gas from up at the Fuel King, even in 93 octane, still has 10% ethanol. I think that's what the second test showed us pretty clearly. And it also showed pretty clearly I'm an idiot that you don't see 3 lines of demarcation here. You just see the one, and that's that. Well, that was going to be that until I picked this up to dump it and noticed it did something pretty cool. See if I can show you guys that there are actually 2 different waves in this bottle. That the top is much less viscous than the bottom. Scientifically, I don't know what that's actually telling us, different specific gravities or something in the fluids, but it just looked cool, so I thought I'd share. So guys, there's my bumbling examination of how these ethanol testing kits work. This was actually quite a bit of fun. It might be a fun thing to do if you have school-age kids that are interested in science. I mean, this thing's like $4. And you can probably get one of these little droppers for free from a veterinarian or a pharmacist or somebody. There's not much to them. Like I said, there'll be a part 2 coming this spring or this summer. So if you want to stop back in and check that out, be sure you guys subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping in, and we'll catch you on the next one. I'm Max, that's Saddington Bear, and we make videos like this all the time. Here are a couple links to some other videos we've made, and we really appreciate you guys stopping in.